Modern men don't lack opportunities. They lack a spine. They've learned every skill, read hundreds of books, chased every definition of success, yet they still don't command true respect. Why? Because they've forgotten one core truth. Attraction doesn't come from looks or achievements, it comes from presence. Some men walk into a room without saying a word, and every eye turns to them. Not because they're trying to stand out, but because they don't need to. And that's what sets them apart. So what makes a man magnetic in a way that can't be copied? This video gives you the answer. 7 unmistakable signs to know if you're on the right path or just lying to yourself. Watch till the end. Don't miss this. If this is your first time visiting the channel, hit subscribe and like so you don't miss out on exciting upcoming content. Most men today are living in a play they don't even know they're acting in. Every day they walk out the door wearing a mask, smiling on cue, nodding at the right time, constantly shrinking themselves just to be liked. They're not living honestly. They're following the script society wrote for the nice guy. But here's the brutal truth no one wants to hear. The more you try to be liked, the more average you become. The more you chase approval, the more you lose your center. In the end, you're just a watered-down version of yourself. No edge, no clarity, no lasting impression. You become a shadow, present but forgettable. The man who truly attracts never begs for affection. He doesn't chase validation. He doesn't need people to like him. Why? Because he knows, if your identity depends on other people's approval, you've already sold yourself out. He understands that attraction doesn't come from being a good guy. It comes from being a man of principle, willing to stand alone for what he believes in. Real presence comes from within. It doesn't come from designer clothes, big arms, or expensive cologne. It comes from calm, from clarity, from not needing to prove a damn thing. When you stop trying to be loved, you move through life with more freedom, more power, and that naturally pulls people in. On the flip side, the man who lives to be accepted is always tense inside. He laughs when he doesn't want to, agrees when he should say no, stays silent when he should speak up. Every time he does, he bends a little more, until he no longer remembers who the hell he is. That's the silent tragedy of millions of modern men. A strong man isn't afraid of being disliked. He knows being disliked is the price of being different, and being different is the cost of being remembered. If everyone likes you, you're too bland to make anyone feel anything real. A magnetic man makes people either love him or hate him, but never feel nothing. And that's the truth you need to face. You weren't born to please the crowd. You were born to become something distinct, sharp, and unshakable. You're not some snack everyone gets to nibble on. You're a damn strong drink. Those who get it, crave it. The weak choke and walk away. So if you're still living to be liked, it's time to stop. Start living like a man with presence. Do what you know is right. Say what needs to be said. Accept the cost of being honest. Attraction isn't the goal. It's the reward for those with the balls not to need it. Here's a harsh truth. Modern men talk too damn much, and no one's really listening. They ramble on about internet garbage, vent about their lives, and spew noise non-stop. But they're missing one thing: weight. And guess what? Society doesn't respect noise. It respects depth and silence, and words sharp enough to cut through consciousness. A magnetic man isn't a smooth talker. He doesn't need clever banter, doesn't need to crack jokes, doesn't need to fill the air with sound. He knows this. The right silence makes people uneasy. And when he does speak, everything stops. People feel it. Not out of fear, but because his presence says, "This matters. Pay attention." His words carry weight not because he studied communication skills, but because life taught him something deeper. Words are not to be wasted. He doesn't speak to fill the void. He speaks because he has something worth thinking about. And that restraint makes each word hit like a hammer. Weak men fear silence. They talk to cover up awkwardness, to seek attention, to feel valuable. But the more they talk, the more their emptiness shows. And others, especially women, see it instantly. Nothing kills attraction faster than a man who never shuts up and has nothing to say. Attraction isn't in how many words you say. It's in this. Do you have the experience to say less and mean more? Do you have the self-control to stay calm while others scream? Do you have the presence to make people feel your weight without saying a word? That is what draws people in. You don't need to talk more to earn respect. You need to live with more depth. So when you do speak, it feels like they're hearing someone who's been through fire, who understands things most don't, who doesn't need to prove anything. That's when your words become guidance, not a cry for attention. And don't get it twisted. Silence isn't retreat. A strong man knows when to speak and when to keep it to himself. He doesn't chase validation. He watches, he analyzes, and when the moment's right, he says one line, and that's enough. That line might shut the room down, might make someone question everything, might shift the whole game. That's the power of speech, forged through discipline, experience, and awareness. And that's why a magnetic man doesn't need to say much. Because when you've got depth, clarity, and real presence, your words carry their own gravity. But if you have to shout to be heard, maybe even you don't believe in what you're saying. So learn to talk less. But when you do speak, make damn sure no one forgets it. If this video made you think, hit like now. Comment below. How have you applied Stoicism in your life? Stoic success, unbreakable mindset, total control. There's a type of man who always feels the need to prove something. He trains like a maniac for the perfect body, buys flashy cars to earn admiring glances, wears designer clothes, expensive watches, brags about his six-figure income. But underneath all that performance is one thing: fear. The fear that if he doesn't show it, no one will see any value in him at all. And that fear, it kills his entire presence. Because the truly magnetic man doesn't need to show off what he owns. He doesn't need to say he's rich, doesn't need to flex his muscles or flaunt his gear. He just stands there, with clear eyes, steady movements, a grounded posture, and people feel it. This guy is different. You don't need to scream for the world to know who you are. A man with real presence walks into a room and the energy shifts, not because he's loud, but because his presence is dense. There's something about him that makes others sit up, even if he hasn't said a word. That comes from something you can't buy: self-awareness, knowing who you are and not needing anyone's permission to be it. Modern society feeds men fake standards of attractiveness. It says you need a V-shaped body, a tailored suit, a sports car, that alpha lifestyle. But look closer. Most guys trying to look the part are just cheap copies of each other. No depth, no individuality. They leave no impact. Like a pretty photo you glance at once, then forget. The magnetic man doesn't try to be sexy. He doesn't have to. He has something else, something that makes women curious, cautious, and drawn in all at once: purposeful stillness. The kind of silence you can't ignore, because you can feel what's behind it. A sharp mind, a history of real battles, a soul that can't be read too easily. His eyes don't dart around. They don't sparkle with neediness. They lock in, direct, calm, unwavering. Like he's reading you without asking a single question. That can't be faked with a few communication hacks. It comes from facing your own demons, your pain, your failures, and making it out the other side. Muscles, money, reputation, those are just tools. They might help you stand out in a crowd, but they won't make you unforgettable. The only thing that leaves a lasting impression is the energy you bring when you walk in. And that doesn't come from what's outside. It comes from within. From knowing exactly who you are, what you want, and refusing to live for anyone's approval. If you need to show off to feel valuable, you're not valuable yet. If you need others to see you, you still haven't seen yourself. The magnetic man needs no one to declare him worthy. He knows who the hell he is, and that's why no one can look away. Most men live like emotional beggars. They work hard, push themselves, try to do everything right, not for themselves, but to earn someone's approval. A pat on the back from the boss, a compliment from their girlfriend, a glance of admiration from the crowd. And when none of that comes, they feel worthless. But here's the truth. If your value depends on whether others recognize it or not, then you don't really have value. You're just borrowing emotion from other people to cover up the emptiness inside. And eventually, you'll run dry. A magnetic man doesn't chase validation. He doesn't need to be called good, worthy, or enough. He doesn't need others to agree with his choices. Because he's not living for applause, he's living in alignment. And when you live in alignment, you keep going, whether anyone's watching or not. Real influence doesn't come from trying to be charismatic. It comes from consistency. The less you talk about yourself, the more people want to know you. The less you care what others think, the more they become obsessed with you. It's a strange paradox, and one that validation junkies will never understand. Validation is bait, not a goal. When you do something just to be seen, you're putting a leash around your own neck and handing the control to someone else. They don't need to criticize you. They don't need to reject you. They just need to go quiet, and suddenly you feel invisible. That's how millions of men neuter themselves every day without realizing it. But the man who creates impact doesn't need to be seen, and yet people feel him. He doesn't have to shout. He doesn't need a stage. He doesn't need likes or followers. He just lives with intensity, with his own personal code, and that alone creates waves. When he speaks, people listen. When he moves, people follow. Not because he manages his image well, but because his authenticity can't be ignored. You don't need recognition. What you need is self-certainty. To know you're doing what's right, to not need permission, to not need applause, to not wait for someone to approve your mission. Once you have that kind of inner power, you become the axis around which the room starts to turn. And from there, your influence spreads without effort, without show, without noise. So stop living like you're filing an application for the world's approval. Start becoming the kind of man people can't help but pay attention to, whether they like it or not. Don't be the good guy in someone else's story. Be dangerous in real life. Be the man who needs no validation, because his presence alone is undeniable proof. Real attraction isn't about what you chase, it's about what you're willing to walk away from. Put simply, if you're not ready to lose it, you never truly own it. Weak men cling. They cling to relationships out of fear of being alone. They cling to shitty jobs out of fear of unemployment. They cling to bland social circles out of fear of isolation. And every time they do, they trade away a piece of their dignity for a cheap sense of safety. The magnetic man is the opposite. He's willing to turn down anything that doesn't align with his values, whether it's money, love, or shiny opportunities. Because he knows one thing for sure, every compromise without principle is a trap. The more you bend, the more you lose your center. The more you fear loss, the easier you are to control. Attractive men don't play the please everyone game. He's not afraid to say no. He doesn't worry that, if I don't give in, she'll leave. Because he knows, real love doesn't come from pleasing, it comes from being real. And if a woman walks away because you stood your ground, her leaving is a blessing, not a loss. Same goes for society. You'll face 1,000 moments where saying yes would keep you liked, unbothered, approved. But if it goes against your code and you still go along with it, you're selling yourself out. And people can feel that. They might not say it, but they'll never truly respect you. A man with presence is a man who can walk away when it's time. No threats, no drama, just a line drawn, cross it, and I'm gone. No noise, no begging anyone to change, because not everything deserves to be held onto. Some things must be dropped so you can hold on to yourself. Your power lies in this. You're not bound. You're not emotionally hijacked. You can love deeply, work with passion, live fully, but you don't cling. You show up, but you don't depend. And that's what makes you rare, irreplaceable, unshakable, unmanipulatable. Women feel that. The world feels that. When you're ready to lose, fear loses its grip on you. You're no longer a pawn in someone else's game. You're the one holding the cards, and you're not afraid to fold when the hand isn't worth your time. Remember this, the more afraid you are to lose, the more power others have. But when you live with clear principles and unshakable focus, you don't need to threaten anyone. Your presence says enough. This is not a man you can push. This is a man who can leave at any moment and leave behind a void no one else can fill. We live in a generation where the idea of being a man has been twisted into something laughable. One side screams you have to be tough, invincible, always alpha. The other side begs you to be soft, cry it out. You deserve to be loved too. The result? A mess of confused, directionless men who have no clue what the hell they're supposed to become to feel accepted. The truth is, you don't need to become a man. You already are one. The real question is whether you have the balls to live like it or not. A magnetic man doesn't fake toughness, but he also doesn't use weakness as an excuse to dodge responsibility. He doesn't live a role. He doesn't puff up trying to look masculine. He doesn't collapse into victimhood either. He simply lives in alignment with what he believes, does what he knows needs to be done, and owns the consequences like a grown man. You don't need to tell anyone you're a man. You just need to act like one. Not by yelling, "I fear nothing," but by facing yourself every single day. Facing fear. Keeping your word. Getting back up after you fall. Living by principle, even when no one's on your side. That's why the attractive man doesn't need to play a part. He doesn't show off strength. His strength was forged in the dark, through days and years no one saw, no one applauded. Every choice he makes is intentional. Every word he speaks carries weight, and every step he takes follows a path he chose. He doesn't need a woman to declare him a real man. He doesn't need society to stamp him with that title. None of that changes who he is, because he already defined himself. Silently, inwardly, without applause. This world doesn't need more performers. It needs real men. Men who don't run from their role, who don't apologize for their presence, who don't compromise just to be accepted. They don't shout, they don't brag, they don't play dress up. But when they walk into a room, the air shifts. When they speak, people listen. When they live, others follow. You don't need to perform. You just need to look in the mirror every morning and ask, "Do I respect this man?" If the answer is no, then nothing you achieve out there means a damn thing. If the answer is yes, then you don't need permission to live with power. You already are man enough. You don't need to learn how to be magnetic. You just need to stop living like a weak man in disguise. Stop chasing validation. Stop running your mouth to hide the void. Stop clinging to the very things that strip you of yourself. The magnetic man isn't perfect. He's the one who dares to live real, to say no, to stay silent, to walk away, to take responsibility, and most of all, to live without pretending. Attraction isn't a strategy, it's a byproduct of inner strength. Inner strength built through discipline, through experience, through beating the man in the mirror, day after day. You can keep living the way you are, comfortable, safe, invisible, or you can start becoming the man even you would respect. No one's going to do it for you. And if not now, then when? Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.